Hello everyone! This hour on Verbling, the next in my Great Short Stories series, we're going to be looking at short stories 28 and 29 by Donald Barthelme, and we'll be talking about them. We can compare them. I've got some discussion questions for you, and especially, if you had time, we're going to look at the final extra essay that I gave you to think about the structure of the story and how that contributes to the meaning. So, lots to do. Let's get started. But first, a little bit about me. I'm John Eric, your Verbling teacher for this hour. I'm an American teacher from New York, hanging out in Lisbon, Portugal to bring you this class. By the way, here are 3 quick rules to help you participate. Don't forget to turn off, tune in, and open up, which means when you're not speaking, please turn off your microphone so we can keep the classroom quiet. When you are speaking, tune in to the new words and phrases that you're learning. Use them actively so that I can correct you and give you feedback. Finally, open up to your classmates. Relax and have fun. We're all here to learn, and this is a safe and respectful place to practice your English. And that is a bit about me. What I'm going to do is add the discussion questions. They're already there in the document, but I'm going to add them here to this page so we can also see them on the screen. And then we will get started. So let me first just greet everyone. Hello, Sylvia. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks.
Did you have a chance to read the extra at the bottom of the story? Just out of curiosity.
No.
Okay. But we'll talk about it, so don't worry. And what about you, Daniel? Did you have a chance to read the extra part?
I read the story because
Okay, good.
the previous day I don't understand everything.
Okay, good. Not everything, I think, is meant to be understood.
Understood.
Let's see. Let me just move this over on the screen. You should be able to see. I lost my numbers, but okay. You should be able to see the questions there. All right. Well, it's a little small. Let me make it just a bit bigger. There we go. Okay, and I didn't put in a vocabulary exercise, but it doesn't mean we can't do it. In the previous classes, what I tried to give you was a technique, a way to approach vocabulary. So we can come back to that at some point. I'll ask you to go through the steps, even without having the graph on the screen. Do you remember the vocabulary exercise that I gave you? Like, for example, in the I don't know if I did it in the game. I can't remember, but I did it in the previous story, the Australian one. What's his name? The Tim. I forgot his name. But do you remember the graph that I gave you for hunting for words? Do you remember that?
Yes.
So, do you remember the procedure or the technique, how it was supposed to work, more or less?
You suggested to write down on the card and making flashcard and
Oh, right. But I'm saying
put them into the box.
yeah. No,
and
no.
repeatedly.
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the business class. I'm talking about how to approach vocabulary in a native text like this. Native because it wasn't meant to be read by people learning English. It was meant to be read by people, just purely for literature, for enjoyment.
Maybe guessing, thinking seriously about association in the text, reading context.
Well, let me put one on the screen because I think we're confusing things. One second. Let me just double check if I have. I just want to spend just a minute so that it's really clear. Give me just a second here. I think in the graph I had put 6 columns. Give me just a second here. I'm going to take a look at the game if I have it there. I think I didn't put it in the game. That's the problem. But anyway, let me just see. If I have it, I'll put it on screen. We can take a look. Did I put it? Yes, I did. Ah, good. Look at that. Sometimes I'm actually prepared. Okay, so don't laugh at me. I'm going to share my screen, and this is what I meant. Can you see this vocabulary chart?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Even if I don't put it there, my idea was to give you a kind of procedure to follow. So if there are words that are especially difficult, you can do this in your head. You don't really need a chart. So first, so now that you're looking at the chart, just quickly, tell me what the procedure is going column by column from left to right. Obviously, the first column is there to identify a word that you're unsure about, but that you think is important. So in column 2, where it's a sentence, what are you supposed to do? What do you think?
In which sentence is used this word? Or appear this word?
Find which sentence it's used in. That's right. Okay. And number 3, I guess that's pretty obvious, right? What do you do in number 3?
Yes.
What do you think it means?
What do you think it means? Exactly. Only you. Don't go to any outside source. It's really important that you do this. It's the most important thing. Whoops, I wrote 3 twice. I should have written 4. Okay, and about column 4, definition. After you guess, what are you going to do with column 4, or specifically column 3 and 4? What do you think?
Look up on the internet.
And
look it up.
What? And do what with column 3? If you look it up, that's fine. You don't have to. But if you do, that's fine. And what do you think that has to do with column 3, your guess?
Sorry?
What does that have to do with column 3? What does 4 have to do with column 3? What's the relationship here?
Between column 3 and 4.
Yeah. After you guess, you look it up, and what are you supposed to do with that information?
Sometimes match, sometimes not match.
Okay, so what you mean is you're going to test your guess and see if it really works. Okay, that's fair enough, I agree. Okay, and column 5 example. This is, again, your example. I think it's better that you create your own example. So, what do you think about column 5 before we leave this? In other words, why do you think I'm including column 5? What do you think the purpose is there?
Try to put in practice.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say again?
Try to put in practice the word.
Okay, yeah. Once you've tested your guess and you feel confident, try to put it into practice. I could put column 6, get a native speaker to correct you, but I think that goes without saying. You have to verify whether your example is right. So do you need a chart to do this, or do you think you could do this in your head? I mean, you could just do this, right, as a procedure. So even though it's not there, it's still a good idea for you to identify words like this. So I didn't put it in, but I want you, don't forget this as a technique or as an approach. Okay, that's all I want to say about this. We can certainly go to difficult vocabulary at the end of class, but now let's actually talk about the story. So I'm going to get this back on screen. And give me just a second. There we go. There we go. Okay. So we've all read the story. I've got some questions for you. Did you like the story, Sylvia?
It was a little bit weird.
How so? How so, Sylvia? How
Uh,
so?
what's the meaning? How so? Why? I have to explain why?
How so
Yes.
means why. In what way?
Okay. Because okay, it was described that everything is dying, sneakers dying, and then they change the context from animals, and at the end was about the sexual education, and then they jump from an argument to another. It
And
jumped.
so why is that strange? That's all that's stuff that comes up in a school, you know, learning about death and about sexual education and animals and plants. That comes up in a school. Those are topics we all talk about in school, right?
Yes,
Why is that strange?
high school wasn't like this.
It wasn't like this. Ah, so it was this school and the story is different than you expected it to be. It challenged your expectations. Do you agree?
Yes.
Hmm. And Daniel, what about you? You found the story a little strange too, right?
Yeah, quite strange.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Because
quite strange. Okay.
because of the radically change. The writers talking about the class, the death in class, and suddenly uh, there's talking about philosophy, deep philosophy, and suddenly the class try the teachers make love in front of them.
Right.
I don't know. Strange.
Yeah.
Yuki, oh, sorry.
I don't used to read literature in Spanish, and
Uh-huh.
it's all is new for me.
Good. This is a good thing because you're reading it in English and you're coming to class, which means you're not afraid of it. That's a very good sign. And let me ask Yuki too, did the story challenge your expectations of stories or of life itself? That's one of my questions at the end. What makes the story postmodern? Did the story end how you expected? But it doesn't just have to be about the ending. Was the story different than you expected, Yuki?
Um, um, it yes, it is unexpected for me. In the meaning of, I think it is a masterpiece. This story, um, this story is a best story that I read recently. Uh, After the class, I repeated. I read it. I repeated to read it, and I think about. I continue to think why this story touched my heart into tears.
That's
I think this story is very closely connected to today's problem. It is very urgent, and and I'd like to add that the composition of this story is just excellent. Um, mm, Very beautiful. Firstly, we don't know, we don't understand what is happening. Yeah.
yeah.
And after that, we know that planting trees are dying, but it is not, it doesn't matter for me. Our planting tree has died. Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
after that, we know herb garden also dying. And after mice are dying.
Right.
But we still we have no concern about it because it often happens. Yeah. And after tropical fish and salamander, it often nowadays it often happens because it is a very rare animals. They can live only in very clear circumstance with beautiful water and beautiful with beautiful water, with clear water. But after that, it happened. The puppy appeared in the story. The puppy gets a whole paragraph. Yeah. Yes. And then we began to think about it seriously. After also this puppy has a name of same name of this teacher. Yes.
Edgar, right?
Protagonist of this story, Edgar. Yeah. And after that, human. Yeah. First person died. It's the orphan. Yeah. And after that, something serious, something very awful has happened. Yeah, student, father, mother, and after that, students themselves begin to die. Yeah, they have played at the construction site. Yeah, and they died. And after father was killed by intruder. Yeah, by knife. And in the end of story, yeah, children expected teacher, wanted teacher to make a lab with assistant. Yeah, I think. Do you think just children demanded this as a joke? Children just doing this with tricks? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think children wanted to feel the life, something they 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 wanted to feel something hope. So making love and make a child is a symbol of hope. And such a problem is very vivid in these days. In all over the world, process of declining of birth rate is going, especially in Japan. Now very few children and aging society is also going on. In such a time, this story is very vivid, very important. I was very touched this story. Thank
Wow, that's a lot of information. But let's get some reactions from the rest of the class too. So first of all, any comments for Yuki, Sylvia, and Daniel? I know you joined us a little late, Shadow, but I'd like to hear your reactions as well. What do you think about what Yuki's saying? About my only note here is that Yuki's saying the theme here is really hope, even though it's a story where one thing dies after another. What do you think about that, Sylvia?
Is it hope? For me, it wasn't hope.
What was it? And also talk a little bit about what Yuki was saying, if you could comment on that too. I'd like this to be a dialogue as much as possible. So what do you think about what Yuki was saying?
For me, it wasn't a real hope, the theme of this story, but was more a description of this classroom.
Right.
And the pupils are, it's pupils, is not by, how Yuki said, puppies. I was checking on the dictionary.
The puppy that died.
Dog.
The little
But
dog.
Okay, yeah.
Little dog died. You remember?
Yes, I forgot the little dog. I remember the snakes in the beginning, and then they jump to philosophy, and how children can be so philosophical at 8 years, 7 years.
Exactly.
It's impossible.
Daniel, want to comment on that? What do you think? Why on earth did the children become little philosophers?
Because surrounding people and animals surrounding children all has all dies all are dying. So there is no option for children to think about their life seriously. It's connected to the philosophy. So that the children in such a circumstance maybe can think about philosophy. I think.
Wow.
I don't think that children at 7, 8 years can think about in this way.
So, Sylvia, if that's true, and I agree with you, of course they wouldn't. They'd all run out of the classroom screaming. So, is this story a comedy, a tragedy, or something else? That's my question for you. What do you think?
Dark humor.
Dark humor, says the Spaniard who lives in the land of Luis Buñuel.
Yes, yes.
Of course, this is a classic Buñuel film that's written as a short story. I think so too. Do you
I
think?
think
Wait,
it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to ask if you agree, Sylvia. Do you think that's
Yes, I'm agree with Daniel. It's dark humor.
It's gotta be, but I also agree with Yuki too. It's dark humor, but it's dark humor in such a way that we start to take it seriously, and we start to question these changes, these things that challenge our expectations. Well, if you look at,
I agree
go
with
ahead, yes.
Daniel. I think this kind of story belong to the genre tragicomedia.
Mm.
Tragic commedia. One of symbolistic writers of this genre is Chekhov. Chekhov wrote a play, a lot of some play. They are called tragic comedy.
And he wrote a
Why
lot of short stories too.
he said why he was writing comedy? Because comedy more vividly moves humans' heart. So it's very demanding. Through a comedy, through a mirror of comedy, human can think about the problem very seriously.
So maybe we wouldn't look at it if it wasn't
Yes,
a comedy. Maybe
yes.
it would be. I think that's a good point because I forgot where I was reading it. I don't remember if it was in the extra part or if it was in the Michael Breyer's essay, the link that I gave you. But I think it was in the extra part, the George Sanders essay at the bottom of the document, where he says what a lesser writer would do. It's pretty interesting. So he talks about the difference between this story and what a lesser writer would do. And a lesser writer could have ended the story. Let me just see if I can find it for you, exactly what he says, because I highlighted it in yellow in the original. But give me just a second. He talks about patterns, and he says a lesser writer could have stopped right after the children say, "But what does this mean? Where do things go when they die?" I don't remember exactly where it is in the story in the beginning. And he says, "I don't know. Nobody knows." And if you read the George Sanders essay, he says, we could have stopped the story here. Here's my theory. Do you remember that part of the story, everyone, where the Edgar, the teacher, says, no one knows, and the children are starting to get
Mm-hmm.
anxious. Here's my theory. Tell me if you agree. If we had stopped the story at that point, it would not have been a postmodern story. It would have been something else. Maybe a modernist story. I don't know. But it would have been a postmodern story. The fact that we continue and the pattern continues, and the fact that the children become instant philosophers are all elements of this postmodern humor. We don't have to say postmodern, but just for lack of a better word. What do you think about that theory?
I think the progress of death of humans and animals is very natural and systematic. And death is arriving, death is here. But in the end of the story, children against it, children protest. That's why children want to see how their teacher making love with favorite girl and have a children. But and children is asking what is the meaning of this life? But where is the meaning of life and death? Why people die? But no answer. There is no answer. Even teacher can't reply to this question. This is a very very basic problem of humankind.
It's the meaning of life.
Yes.
Well,
That's why philosophy is here. After author wanted to ask a question for us. I think it's a little strange in the end of the story. Some philosophy is asked by children, but I think it's challenging from author. This author, I think so.
go
Uh,
ahead, Sylvia. Yeah.
I think, okay, it's okay that it's a postmodern story, but I think also that it's too far from the perspective of an adult, not from children.
I didn't hear the last part.
And
Say that again. What's too far? Say that again.
it's too farce. Is it okay?
Farce?
Farce. Farce.
Like farce, like farcical, like a play that is a satire.
Distracting. Yeah. No.
No, it is so from too much from the perspective of an adult. Like
The
I
way
don't
it's
know.
written. Forced. Oh,
Force.
I thought you said farce. That's why. Because farce is like satire. You meant it's too forced. Forced.
Yes.
But don't,
Yes.
well, look, Sylvia, that leads into question number 2. Are the students different from your school experience? What do you think about their request at the end of the story, right? And the request is, we require an assertion of value. Don't you think, or do you think, that that has something to do with us as the reader taking the part of the children, and Edgar, the teacher, something? It's like in theater when we break down the fourth wall, and suddenly the characters are talking directly to us. You know, that's called breaking the fourth wall. Have you heard of that before?
Yes.
Breaking the fourth wall. Don't you think that's a moment where the author breaks the fourth wall? And it says, I have this feeling that we have substituted the children, and the author has substituted the narrator in that particular moment. And suddenly we're all aware, both the author and the students. It's just my theory. I don't know if I'm right. But I just have this feeling that suddenly the wall of fiction has just been broken for us, and we're talking directly to, like, this individual, Donald Barthelme, and he's reading our thoughts, and we're talking back to him. That's what the experience was for me. What do you think about this idea of breaking the fourth wall? In other words, do you think it was deliberate? Do you think it was forced for a reason? Because I think it was. I don't know.
I don't follow the last point. Sorry. Breaking a fourth.
Breaking the fourth wall. Sorry, I pressed return too soon in the chat window.
Like the wall, Pink Floyd.
Not that wall. The wall of the suspension of disbelief. In other words, suspension of disbelief. When you read fiction, you have to believe it's real, or you start to lose interest. And he Sylvia says it's forced when they become philosophical, and other points too. And I'm saying, isn't it forced because that's exactly what he wants to do at that moment. He wants to break the suspension of disbelief. That's my theory.
I don't think philosophy is forced here.
Really?
Think so. I think beginning of philosophy is a question by children. Plato, Aristotle, mm, Ar-
Aristotle?
Aristotle, their philosophy begins by a very simple question. That kind of question are often asked by children. Why we are live? What's the meaning of death? Why we have to die? That's a simple question. It's the beginning of philosophy. So, yes, of course, it is a story, a short story. So, I think there is some narrative, too much narrative maybe. But I think basically there is no forced
Well,
philosophy.
let me just draw your attention to just one little part
Only
here.
there is a very extreme situation in this story is going.
I just want to draw your attention to one line, though. Just one line. Give me just a second here, and I'll put it on screen. The children say this. By the way, that's a really good point, Yuki, about the fact that it's a really short story. He talks about the meaning of life in 2.5 pages. That's quite an achievement. So he's going to have to take some liberties. Look in the chat window. Can everyone see that?
Chat window.
Yeah. And I said, no, life is that which gives meaning to life. And they said, the children said, but isn't death considered a fundamental datum? The means by which the taken for granted mundanity of every day may be transcended in the direction of. I think that's the part that Sylvia thinks is too forced. Yes. And I'm suggesting maybe it's too
Teacher,
forced for a reason. Go ahead, Shadow.
I'm sorry, but I want to understand this sentence that children said because I didn't understand it.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say the last part again.
I'm sorry. I was saying that this sentence that children say that they said, but isn't death considered as till the end of the sentence? I didn't get it.
Yeah, me neither. It's very technical.
It's difficult. Yes.
It's more like a report that they are talking like a science people.
Scientists.
Scientists.
Yeah. A fundamental datum. Well, datum, the word datum means fact about the world. Fact. Because we have data, many facts, datum, one fact. So we don't usually see the word data in the singular. So data, datum. That's the first point. So isn't death considered a fundamental fact? The means by which, in other words, and then this next part, taken for granted mundanity. Mundane means what, everyone? Do you know that word? Mundane.
Yeah, every day. Something
Every
like
day.
every day.
Yeah. Every day, something that we expect, something that always happens is mundane. So, if we're going to translate that, well, Sylvia, you're on a roll. Do you think you could translate that into plain English?
Okay. It's difficult. Okay, they're considering that life is more. There are some facts that prove that life. No, I can't translate.
Okay, well, facts is good. Go ahead, Yuki.
I think it is said just Death is all. Death is for all people. It is taken for granted, and we can't avoid death
We can't avoid it, but there's this final part that says
because
transcended.
it's a mandatory. It's a
But it's,
mundane. Death is mundane. Mundanely happens.
but if we're gonna, by the way, Shadow, I don't think you need to understand that sentence to enjoy the story at all. It's there as a kind of a joke, serious joke, but a joke. But if you want to understand it, what Yuki's saying, I think, is good. But just let me add one thing. It's the fundamental fact that transcends the everyday. And they're starting to go off in this philosophical direction, and then they're cut off. So the idea, they're trying to make this point that, wait, isn't death the thing that gets us out of mundane thinking? When we consider our mortality, life takes on meaning. I think that's what they're trying to. They start to say that, and then they're interrupted. Teacher says, "I said maybe." We don't like it. We don't like it, right? They're all getting upset, and then they say, and at that exact moment, Helen appears. Let me ask you a question. Where did Helen come from? We never heard about Helen. In the entire story, there's no Helen until that moment. Daniel, where did Helen come from?
Regarding Helen, Helen is the name of assistant of teacher. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. But there is a bird, heron. Yeah.
There is.
It resembles to the heron by name. In Japan, heron is recognized as a distinguished, distinct. Heron, there's a very rare heron now remains in Japan. It is recognized as a distinctive bird, and people think it is very dangerous moment. So Japanese people very try to continue this heron's life, and now and once heron completely distinct, but now
you mean extinct?
Sorry, extinct. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but after that, people find a pair of herons remains in China. So scientists went to China and bring heron back to Japan and try to try to breed them, and now a number of herons gradually increasing. That's a hope. So I think I have such an association of assistants named Heron and that this extincting bird Heron.
But is it heron or Heron? Heron.
Heron.
Right, those white birds, big white birds.
Yes, big white birds.
Also called cranes.
Yes.
Right?
Crane. Yes, there are enough amount of cranes in Japan, but heroin, Japanese heroin.
Okay.
Is very few now. On the verge of the extinction.
Right. It's a good theory. I don't know.
Remind me of this.
I don't know if there's a connection. I don't know. Could be, because the problem is that I don't associate Helen with heron because I don't see the connection. But I think you're right about the hope part. I agree with that. And let me ask. I was just before you were talking, I was saying something to Daniel. What was I saying? Daniel, are you there?
Yeah.
Don't sleep. Are you there?
No, I'm listening too.
Why do you think why do you think we don't hear about Helen until that exact moment of the story? I think Yuki's getting at the fact that Helen represented a kind of hope out of a hope from extinction. And in the story, that could make some sense. What do you think? Why do we only see her at that exact moment? We never hear about her before.
Because it's the moment to give a sex class and need a I don't know, I don't know.
You don't normally have sexual education in elementary school. Not normally. Maybe a little bit later.
But teacher sometimes are have new methods to
Teachers sometimes get fired and go to jail. So,
yes.
and remember, it's not the students who decide. It's not the students who decide when to have sexual
Maybe the
education.
school is a metaphor about life and children are adults. I don't know. I don't know. And I I don't have too much imagination.
Uh, I think you have more than enough. Okay, let me just point out one little quote when Helen comes in the story. I think this is, for me, the moment of truth in the story. I'll tell you where it is. This one here. I'll put it in the chat window. And Shadow, do you remember this part of the story where Helen appears?
Yes.
Look at this little quote here. I said, remember, the children have this request. We require an assertion of value, right? And then I said, the assertion of value is they want to have this live sex education class out of the blue. And I said, in the quote, I would be fired and that it was never, or almost never, done as a demonstration. Helen looked out of the window. To me, that is the most brilliant part of the story. That line, Helen
I
looked out
also,
of the window.
I also think so. Yes, here. It is a until this part, there is a very dark, very dark atmosphere in the story, ruled in first part of this story. But here there is a move. There is a wild, strange move of story. Helen is a key of changing the mood of this story, and it's the beginning of answer the students are seeking. So it's a kind of hope, and it it continue to next final paragraph. Yeah, I mean the Jabil. There were knock on the door, and I don't know who is I. Yeah, I think teacher. I open the door. Yeah, and the new Jabil.
Teacher.
Walk,
It's a teacher.
teacher. Yeah,
Yeah.
teacher opened the door, and the new Jabil walked in.
Right.
The children cheered widely. So this story finished with a hope. I think hope. Helen and this Jabil is a symbol of hopes.
Okay. And let me go to, I have hold on just a second here. Okay, so there was a quote from the essay at the bottom I wanted to share with you too. Okay. Okay, let's talk about that. So, Shadow, I want to hear you too. So, there's a question there in the middle that says, Yuki was talking about the gerbil at the end, and I asked, who knocked on the door? Why does the new gerbil walk in the first place? And then afterwards, let's compare your answer to his. His, I'm sorry, that meant the George Sanders, the essay at the bottom. But let me ask you, who knocked on the door, and why does the gerbil come in? Based on what you read and what we've talked about so far, what do you think?
I I think I understand that the story is about meaning of life. So he's talking about living and death. So maybe this new uh, Gable, it's like the story like circle. I don't know how to explain that, but like new animal came and new events will happen and he will die and it's like a circle. I mean,
Like a cycle?
yeah.
I, yeah, absolutely. Have we seen the gerbil before in the story?
No, but it sounds like the
No,
puppy.
we have.
I mean, yeah,
We
but I
have
mean, it's
in the
like,
first story, Jabal
I
had
mean,
Died.
died.
it sounds like the puppy that they came and lived with them, then he died. It's like the same.
It is exactly the same. The gerbil died, and then he came back. Spooky. It's Halloween.
It's the same. Sorry. It's the same Jabal that had died in the first of story.
I think
I think
so.
another one.
I think
Yeah,
it's the
you
same.
think so?
I think the gerbil came back from the dead. That's my
It's
theory.
a ghost.
It's Jesus gerbil.
Maybe. Eh, it's a kind of Christian reassertion.
That's my theory.
You know, teacher,
Go
I
ahead.
want to say something.
Go for it.
It's about Helen, and I just heard it. It's read it. It sounds like they care a lot to know how they talk about death and they start talking about how they create a new life. Maybe this is the reason that children were asking this question about Helen.
Yeah, absolutely. They need first of all, it must get them curious about where life comes from since they've been around so much death. Um, but the funny part is that they demand to know immediately, right now, how the act of life occurs. And Helen mysteriously appears like she's been there all the time, but she's suddenly there. Just a quick question. In the quote that I wrote in the chat window, it says, Helen looked out the window. Why do you think Helen looks out the window at that particular moment? I said I would be fired, and it was almost never done as a demonstration. Helen looked out of the window, and that changes the mood of the story. I'm asking this to the whole class. Why does Helen look out the window?
I think I didn't pay attention to this point. I just thought that Helen is very disrupted, and just thinking about something. Maybe she think about the children's future, and she she need to do something for her children. Show maybe she tried to show the evidence of life, yeah,
Could be.
by making love with the teacher.
I have a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
But it is very embarrassing for a young girl, young woman. So she just
You know what my theory is? My theory is that it's not embarrassing.
yeah.
My theory is that just like these other expectations we have in a fiction story, I think the author, in a very clever way, without saying it openly, he's trying to suggest a cliche, the romantic love interest in a Hollywood movie or in a story, in a more conventional story.
Like a Harlequin romance?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Helen magically appears when we need her, right? Just like characters are there for almost like just a purpose in a Harlequin story. But the suggestion is she looks out the window because she doesn't want to say anything, because she's loved him her entire teaching career and she's never said anything, and now the truth has come out and she can't face it anymore, so she looks out the window. I think the author is playing with the idea of romantic, like a romantic motif in stories and making fun of it. Just
Maybe. Maybe. It remind me of the style of Japanese animation.
of Japanese animation?
Yes, there is such a moment. Heroine do such a things. Very
Oh, like
romantically.
very
Yes,
melodramatic.
yes, dramatic. Yes, and there is some hint of to connecting to whole story. Author of animation sometimes describe the expression of heroine telling the whole story. So it's a typical style of Japanese animation.
Unfortunately,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm not
That's
an
not
expert in Japanese animation. It's my
it's very
problem.
interesting.
It is, but I don't know
Yeah,
anything.
I'm very interesting about it. And it sounds, yeah, that's right. What Yukino said.
Because
I think what the teacher said very interesting. What I said, it doesn't matter. Animation is
it's good,
it's
but
not important.
give us an example, because I don't know what you mean. Give us an example to like
So, John, you think that Helen looked at the window, just thinking about her romantic.
because the children have said what she could never say. And it's a moment of melodrama that the author, I think, is making fun of. But it's a short story, so he just suggests it. He doesn't come out and say it, and he leaves it up to us to figure out. Because why did he put that line there? There's got to be a reason. It's just too perfect. So I think he's making fun. He talks about, remember, the mundanity. Isn't death the fundamental datum that transcends the mundanity of life? Or this is this mundane
That's the key of this story. Mundanity, usual things, everyday things are very closely connected to the unusual things. Death, yeah,
Yeah.
murder, yeah. And between this event, there are children, yeah. Children are pure, but and they don't know what to do, and that's why they wanted to see how teachers having sex.
And I gave you a little quote here. We have to end the class, but before we go, here's a little quote, and you can read the rest of this at the bottom of the page because I put the whole essay there. George Sanders says this is his answer to why the gerbil walks in. Curiosity, love, personal. No, sorry. This is from Michael Byers. That's a link at the top of the page. Sorry. Michael Byers, who's a writer as well, says, love, curiosity, love, personal connection, all sources of solace in the face of death. And once that solace arrives, the dead world returns to life, having gained mysterious and surprising powers during its time away. The gerbil, resurrected, can now knock on doors and propel itself around with human intention, and the wild joy is the result. Think about that. The gerbil might not really be the same gerbil as before, but it seems like it doesn't matter. At least to me, it doesn't matter. He's back. And this time, he seems to have human intentions. And by showing up, Suddenly, they don't need to see a demonstration of a sex ed class. Suddenly, the gerbil has taken on new meaning since it's been gone. The fact that it comes back uh, is it has been transformed in the story as well as the idea that it's resurrected. So it's a kind of metaphorical resurrection. Well, we've got to stop here. We can definitely talk more about Donald Barthelme in the future classes of Great Short Stories. You can send your questions and comments to me as well. But think about these, and we're going to go on to, I don't know what we're going to do next. Something else, I'm not sure. Maybe we should end Great Short Stories right now. We've already hit the top and we're done. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Yuki, what do you think? We've already read the best story, now we're finished.
This is one of best of stories I have ever read in English. So thank you for giving us opportunity to familiar with such a great story.
So there's nothing else to read. We're done. No more stories. We're over. It's over. We'll just ruin the experience if we read anything else. Forget it. We're done. What do you think? Maybe not. All right, listen, I've got to start the business class. I'll be back in 30 seconds, and we'll do something completely different. Bye for now. Be back in a moment.
Bye for now.
Bye.